Jai Om Vishnu Pad Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Ju Ki Jai. Jai Srila Govinda Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timaranda Shagyana Ajana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gaurava Bishnam Supurakam Garganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipunam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govinda Bidam Ujwalam Bharatanam Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Mande Vishwa Guru Cha Divyad Bhagavat Prem Noe Bija Pranam Devam Divyatanam Suchandavaranam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyambudim Sri Siddhanta Nidim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Mandetam Shubharam Madeka Sharanam Nyashishwara Sridharam Vanchakopatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Nama. So reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the hidden treasure, the sweet absolute, with translation and commentary by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj, translation from the Bengali into English by Sripad Sagar Maharaj. This is chapter 14, Gunatraya-vibhaga-yoga, the three divisions of material nature. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Parambuya Pravakshami Jnananam Jnanamutamam Yadzgyatva Munaya Sarve Param Siddhim Itogata. The Supreme Lord said, "Again, I shall describe to you the supreme teaching, the highest of all fields of knowledge, knowing which the sages attained the ultimate perfection beyond this mundane plane." Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agata sargepi nopajayante pralaye na vyatanti cha. By taking refuge in this knowledge, the soul attains to my nature. Then he is neither born in the cosmic manifestation, nor does he suffer death in the cosmic dissolution. By taking refuge in this knowledge, the soul attains to my nature. Then he is neither born in the cosmic manifestation, nor does he suffer death in the cosmic dissolution. Mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbam tadamyaham sambhava sarvabhutanam tato bhavati bharata. O Bharata, I place the seed within my womb of primordial matter from which all living beings take birth. O Bharata, I place the seed within my womb of primordial matter from which all living beings take birth. Sarva yonishu konteya murtaya sambhavantiya tasam brahmam hadyonir ahambija pradapita. O konteya, primordial matter is the original womb of all life forms that are born of the wombs of all species, and I am the seed-giving Father. O konteya, primordial matter is the original womb of all life forms that are born of the wombs of all species, and I am the seed-giving Father. So in the Brahma Samhita, Krishna talks about that he is glancing over the material nature and injecting the seed of the living entities into the womb of the material nature. And his glance comes out as Shambhu, as Lord Shiva. So Krishna actually doesn't touch the material nature directly, but he casts his glance. I said in the Brahma Samhita, actually, that's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam also. So, Sattvam Rajastama iti guna prakriti sambhava nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. O mighty hero, Arjuna, the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, born of material nature, bind the immutable spirit soul within the body. O mighty Arjuna, O mighty hero Arjuna, the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, born of material nature, bind the immutable spirit soul within the body. So what's the connection between them? How one is bound in this material body. What is the connecting link? That's ahankara, false ego. That is what's connecting us with the material nature, and then the gunas, they're like ropes and they're binding us to the material nature. Tatra sattvam nirmaladvat prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena badnati jnana sangena chanaga tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena badnati jnana sangena chanaga. O sinless one, of these three modes do its purity. The mode of goodness is illuminating and wholesome, conditioning one to happiness and knowledge. So, of these three modes of nature, due to its purity, the mode of goodness is illuminating and wholesome, conditioning one to happiness and knowledge. So it would seem that the mode of goodness, that's very good, and it's leading to knowledge and happiness. But that's also binding us into this material world. So even that mode of goodness, sattva gun, that's also binding for the conditioned soul. Rajo ragatmakam vidi trishna sangha samudbhavam Tannibad nati konteya karma sangena dehinam. O son of Kunti, know the mode of passion to be the embodiment of desire. Born of hankering and attachment, it conditions one to action. O son of Kunti, know the mode of passion to be the embodiment of desire. Born of hankering and attachment, and conditions one to action. So, if you have attachment, if you have desire, then you become attached to so many material objects, then you have to become very active, because how you're going to satisfy your desires, how you're going to attain these different objects without becoming passionate, without becoming very much inclined to act. So it conditions one to action. Tamas tvagyana jamvidi mohanam sarvadehinam pramada dalashyan nidrabis tan nibadnati bharata tamas tvagyana jamvidi mohanam sarvadehinam. Tamas tvagyana jamvidi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidrabis tannibadnati bharata. And, O Bharata, know the mode of ignorance, born of darkness, to be the ignorance of all the embodied beings, conditioning them to delusion, laziness, and slumber. And, O Bharata, know the mode of ignorance, born of darkness, to be the ignorance of all the embodied beings, conditioning them to delusion, laziness, and slumber. I remember one story with Srila Prabhupada. I was young and I was a new brahmachari. So I wanted to take sannyas. I'd only been in the mission less than a year. And I waited early in the morning. I was watching when Prabhupada's servants weren't there, and I entered into his room. And I talked to him, and I asked him for sannyas. But I was doing it cleverly, I thought, because no one was there to know. And he told me, "You wait a little while. You wait, and then I will see." So then I was out, and then Prabhupada was speaking. And while he's speaking, I fell asleep. And when I fell asleep, then Prabhupada said, he woke me up by speaking very loudly. He said, "And you want to take sannyas? A sannyasi must be in the mode of goodness, but you are sleeping, and that is the mode of ignorance." And when he said that, everybody immediately looked at me, and they all said, "You asked Srila Prabhupada for sannyas?"
Secret's out.
Ah?
Secret is out.
So here. And, O Bharata, know the mode of ignorance born of darkness to be the ignorance of all the embodied beings, conditioning them to delusion, laziness, and slumber. Sattvam suke sanjayati rajakarmani Bharata jnanam avritya tutama pramade sanjayati uta. And, O Arjuna, the mode of goodness conditions the embodied being to happiness, and the mode of passion conditions him to action. But the mode of ignorance covers his knowledge and traps him in illusion. Rajas, tamas, chabid bhuya, sattvam bhavati bharata, rajas sattvam tamas chaiva, tamas sattvam rajastata. O Bharata, goodness overcomes passion and ignorance. Passion overcomes goodness and ignorance overcomes goodness and passion. Each mode in turn defeats the others in an unending battle for supremacy. So sometimes the mode of goodness overcomes passion and ignorance. Sometimes passion overcomes goodness and ignorance, and sometimes ignorance overcomes goodness and passion. Nobody is actually really situated when they're in this material world, even if they're a philosopher, a person who's like a philosopher and very inclined to the mode of goodness. But sometimes, even with that person who's predominantly in the mode of goodness, the other modes will overcome him, and he may become conditioned to, he may be overcome by these other modes. And sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyad vivridam sattvam iti uta. When the gateways of the body are illuminated with knowledge, know this to be the manifestation of the mode of goodness. When the gateways of the body are illuminated with knowledge, know this to be the manifestation of the mode of goodness. Loba pravritir aramba karmanam ashamaspriya rajasi etani jayante vivride bharatar shaba. O Arjuna, most noble of the Bharat dynasty, know that when the mode of passion predominates in a person, greed, exertion, undertaking of activities, unrest, and hankering becomes manifest. So this is, when the gateways of the body are illuminated with knowledge, know this to be the manifestation of the mode of goodness. O Arjuna, most noble of the Bharat dynasty, know that when the mode of passion predominates in a person, greed, exertion, undertaking of activities, unrest, and hankering become manifest. Aprakasho pravritischa pramado moha evacha tamasi etani jayante vivride kurunandana. O Kurunandana, O son of the Kuru dynasty, O Kurunandana, by the influence of the mode of ignorance, all the symptoms of dullness, inactivity, delusion, and bewilderment become manifest. O Kurunandana, by the influence of the mode of ignorance, all the symptoms of dullness, inactivity, delusion, and bewilderment become manifest. So, we heard, when the gateways of the body are illuminated with knowledge, know this to be the manifestation of the mode of goodness, knowledge. O Arjuna, most noble of the Bharat dynasty, know that when the mode of passion predominates in a person, greed, exertion, undertaking activities, unrest, and hankering become manifest. O Kurunandana, by the influence of the mode of ignorance, all the symptoms of dullness, inactivity, delusion, and bewilderment become manifest. Then I heard one explanation that was saying, now we have to decide, first there's how they go, there's active intelligence and lazy intelligence, and active, I guess it's active foolishness and lazy foolishness in terms of management. Do you know that example where it says of the best of
Active ignorance is the worst one, right?
oh, active ignorance and lazy ignorance, and active intelligence and lazy intelligence. Speaking of different management types, and so we heard that active intelligence is very good because the person is very. Did you see that? Oh, the person's very energetic and gets a lot of things done. And lazy intelligence, he can also delegate responsibility to others. But of ignorance, there's active ignorance or active foolishness and lazy foolishness. And of those two, lazy foolishness is better than active foolishness, because by lazy foolishness he gets less things wrong done. But when a person has active foolishness, then it can ruin a lot of things. All right. So 14. Yada sattve pravridetu pralayam yati deha brit tadottama vidvam lokan amalan pratipadyate. If a person dies in a state of the mode of goodness, he goes to the pure plains where those who have higher knowledge reside. If a person dies in a state of the mode of goodness, He goes to the pure planes where those who have higher knowledge reside. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tata pralinas tamasi mudayonishu jayate. When a person dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth as a human attached to worldly activity. If one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the lower species.
Maharaj, it seems all these sick people who die of coronavirus will be in the mode of ignorance because you're just there dying and you're sick. Are you in the mode of ignorance?
No. Just because somebody's ill and dies, it doesn't mean that they're predominantly in the mode of ignorance. I mean, everyone has to die eventually of one cause or another. I heard, where Govinda Maharaj was talking, and he was joking, but he said, so if someone dies in a plane crash, that's a very good way to die because immediately it's not there anymore. The body is immediately, within seconds, burned to nothing. But so you can't really say. But normally we'd think that to die in a plane crash would be very terrible, and to people die of so many diseases. Now it's very common that people die of cancer. And they suffer. So, you can't really, we're actually considering that the important thing is if a person is a devotee of the Lord. And if the devotee is in such a state where he can't even remember the Lord due to the very precarious position that he's in at the time of death, then, because even Maharaj Kulashekar says like that, he says, let me die immediately because I do not know what my condition will be at the time of death. But, so there's that consciousness. But it is said, even if a devotee dies and cannot, for one reason or another, remember the Lord will remember his devotee. So sometimes we hear things like that, and we think, oh, these are just popular sayings. But no, there's some truth in that. I remember Prabhupada told us to go, we were in South India, and he told myself and some others, 3 of us, to go to Jagannath Puri, because Snan Yatra was coming up, and we'd be able to see Lord Jagannath. So we got there before Snan Yatra, and we were trying to make arrangements to get into the temple. They said, bring a letter. First they said, bring a letter from Shankaracharya of Puri. There's 4 Shankaracharyas. But he didn't want to give us a letter. He said, bring your books and we'll debate, and then we'll see. And so I wasn't going to do that. And then he's very learned also. And he wanted us to just argue on the basis of the scripture so he could present his position. So I said, we went back to the temple and said, no, he wouldn't give us a letter, but we don't follow the line of Shankaracharya. We follow the line of Vaishnavism. Then they said, then get a letter from the Ram Krishna Society. And I said, no, we don't. We're not directly related. We're not related with the Ram Krishna Society. So they said, then get a letter from the Gaudiya Math. I said, all right. So we went to the Purushottam Gaudiya Math, and they gave us a letter. And then we brought it to the gate, and then they told us to go to the side gate. So we went to the side gate, and then they let us in the side gate, and there were 3 of us. And we're walking towards the temple. We're inside the compound walking towards the temple. And then this big Brahmin with a gold chain around his neck, he blocked our way and he started yelling in Oriya. So then an angry crowd gathered around us, and they were just on the point of beating us and throwing us out when a policeman came. And the policeman said, "You can't be in here." And he said, "You'll have to leave." And I said, yes, take us out. So that policeman took us out, because it was better to be taken out by the policeman than to be beaten and thrown bodily out by the crowd. So then we're thinking, what can we do? And we didn't know what Prabhupada meant when he said. So then we're thinking, we were leaving and we had all our things packed. And then somebody told me, it is said that if a devotee can't go into the temple, then the Lord will come out of the temple for his devotee. And I believe they were referring to both Ratha Yatra and Snan Yatra, but we didn't know that day was Snan Yatra. So I was thinking, well, this is no doubt true, but we are not. I'm not a devotee of that category. So then we're in the street and we're about to offer our obeisances in the dust of the street in front of the gate of the Jagannath temple. We're in the street and offering our dandavats. And when I get up from offering my dandavats, I look up and there's Lord Jagannath above me. Because when they take Jagannath out of the temple for Snan Yatra, they put him up on a higher place and they bathe the deity up high. And from maybe I couldn't see when I was looking straight towards the gate, but when I was getting up and looking up, then I could see the deity of Lord Jagannath. Anyway, so I'm saying that there's also the saying that if one cannot remember the Lord at the time of death, the Lord will remember his devotee. And although I may not consider myself qualified for that either, still, I have no doubt, I have no disbelief in these sayings. I think they are true sayings. I believe them. So, we may not qualify, or we may qualify, or we may not qualify. That's not really a consideration, but we have belief in that. We have belief in that. I'm not. I've heard heard some devotee. He's a good devotee, but he smokes cigarettes, and somebody commented to Govinda Maharaj about it, and Govinda Maharaj, he just reacted. He said, which do you think is stronger? Devotion, the Lord and devotion, or a cigarette? You think a cigarette can kill devotion? No, we don't think that. So it is true that we must follow the principles of devotional service. And to a certain extent, as while we're trying to gain some, we're trying to actually advance in our devotional service, we may follow some principles of Vidhi Marg, of, coming to the temple, offering obeisances, and proper way of relating with the deity and with other devotees. There may be some principles of Vidhi Marg in there, but at the same time, we don't believe that Vidhi Marg is the ultimate goal. The resonance of Vrindavan, the resonance of Mahaprabhu, especially he showed the resonance of Vrindavan. Their worship is the highest, and the resonance of, and Mahaprabhu taught like this, and he taught about Rag Marg. But we don't believe that we're on the plane of where now have attained Rag Marg. But it is really our ideal. Our ideal is Rag Marg. So I'm not going to judge somebody, all the people I know, none of them are smoking cigarettes. But maybe somebody is smoking cigarettes and I don't know about it. I don't smoke cigarettes. But I don't believe that just because somebody is addicted to some kind of bad habit that means they're not a devotee. So I just remember Govinda Maharaj saying, do you think which is stronger, devotion to the Lord or a cigarette? So, I'm just saying that we're not going to be overcome by if we may die in some situation which is undesirable, of some disease, or we can't remember anything. I've seen people who were in advanced stages of dementia. They couldn't even remember the names of their own children. It's not unusual. Yudamanyu said he went to see his father, and his father apparently had Alzheimer's. And his father was a lawyer, but apparently his father couldn't remember his name. But his father still remembered how to speak as a lawyer. So he went in there and he said, Dad, do you remember who I am? Do you remember my name? And his father answered, you know who you are. You know who you are. A typical lawyer could manufacture that answer. When he can't remember somebody's name, and Yudamanyu says, yeah, do you know who I am? And he says, you know who you are. So this is his way of answering. And sometimes people die in a situation which is different than their normal consciousness, but that will not be the end of their relationship with the Lord, even whatever may happen. So let's see. Okay. When a person dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth as a human attached to worldly activity. If one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the lower species. 16. Karmana sukritasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukam ajnanam tamasa phalam. It is said by the learned that good actions result in purity, passionate actions result in sorrow, and ignorant actions lead to darkness. It is said by the learned that good actions result in purity, passionate actions result in sorrow, and ignorant actions lead to darkness. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam rajaso lobha evacha pramada moho tamaso bhavato jnanam evacha. From the mode of goodness, knowledge arises. From the mode of passion, greed. And from the mode of ignorance, delusion, bewilderment, and a lack of knowledge ensue. From the mode of goodness, knowledge arises. From the mode of passion, greed. And from the mode of ignorance, delusion, bewilderment, and a lack of knowledge ensue. Urdvam gachanti sattvasta madhye tishtanti rajasa jaganya guna vrittista adho gachanti tamasa urdvam gachanti sattvasta madhye tishtanti rajasa jaganya guna vrittista adho gachanti tamasa. Persons in goodness ascend up to Satyaloka. Those in passion remain in the middle as humans, and the unfortunate, ignorant persons fall to the lower planes of suffering. Oh. It's getting late, Shani. So I'll end here, and tomorrow we'll continue with this chapter. All right. You ready almost?
Yes.
Okay. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Garadhara Shiva Sadi Ghora Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhakta Raghuna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Rasa Raghuna H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jao Haite Vignana Shabista Puran H.I. Gosai Jar Mui Taradas Kasavar Padarenu Mora Panchagras Tadir Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame More Abhilas H.I. Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majayaman Dharma Koriya. Hare Nam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamada. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhara Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Astatara Sadashi Shrimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Astatara Sadashi Shrimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Sananta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premsigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vishvavaranya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Madhacharya Vrinda Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Dham Mayapur Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Shri Kuladvip Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Soquel Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Govardhan Sham Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Munaju Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj Ki Jai.